Welcome to a world where small devices make the biggest differences. A constantly advancing and interconnected world that relies on a little piece of hardware called a chip. Truth is, you're already living in this world. Your car, computer, and smartphone all need these chips. And the capabilities of chips are evolving constantly, so we'll see their widespread use in drone deliveries, advanced medical procedures, state-of-the-art robotics, alongside all kinds of immersive technologies, gaming, virtual reality. And it's just getting started. This is a technological revolution. And since these little things already power our present, we're asking, what companies will shape the world of 2025? This is Show Us the Money. We're a team of dedicated researchers highlighting the companies we believe will play a defining role in the world of 2025 and hold the potential to deliver strong investment returns. It's not financial advice. We just bring you our research. So what are we looking at today? We're going to explore advanced micro devices. You may know them better as AMD, and they're among the leading chip, aka semiconductor companies today. Companies like AMD make the modern technological world function. Without them, your devices, like a PC or a laptop, simply wouldn't work. But it's more than just your devices. They're also helping to power the world's largest companies, who in turn power the largest economies. So their reach is not just impressive, it's essential. And after we dig into the business, we'll ask the question, what could an investment in AMD now be worth in 2025? Let's take a look at some of the various elements of AMD's business, like PCs, that's personal computers, gaming, and data centers. Before we get into the details, let's first explain the main terms you should know when talking about semiconductor companies. CPU and GPU. So the central processing unit, or the CPU as it's referred to, can be considered the brain of a computer. Without it, a computer simply couldn't function, because these chips contain the basic logic to perform general tasks. More advanced chips would be graphic processing units, or GPUs. And yeah, a GPU can be considered the soul of a computer. It's an independent chip, and it handles the visuals, or graphics as the name would suggest, but also other specialized tasks. Hopefully that helps to clarify some of the terms we're going to be using. Let's have a look at how AMD put their own stamp on personal computers with their semiconductor technology. Up until this past decade, AMD had been playing second fiddle to the US tech behemoth Intel. But a shift in that dynamic started around 2014 when Dr. Lisa Su became CEO of AMD. Let's hear what she has to say.
The most important thing for us as we thought about what AMD would look like back in 2014 is, what are we good at? And what we are good at is making high-performance microprocessors.
So how did AMD get to where they are today? Well, let's get into it. AMD had spent years catering to the lower-end market, but Lisa Su changed the game for the company and focused them on innovation. This meant higher quality products and designing more efficient chip architecture than their competition. We'll get nerdy here for a second, give you an example. AMD's processors have independent cores, meaning that even if one fails, the CPU can continue to function. This was unlike other CPUs that were out there. Yeah, we're looking at you, Intel. The chip industry is all about being smaller, faster, and cheaper. AMD's secret weapon here has been teaming up with Taiwan Semiconductor. Now, if you've seen our NVIDIA video, which I desperately want to call our NVIDIA, you'll remember this company. Taiwan Semi is the powerhouse when it comes to chip making, and they're essential to producing the highest quality chips. AMD used this partnership to design and manufacture better products than their competition. Their shift to a higher quality CPU design became the Zen series, and this has played a huge part in the company's progression. It's a key reason they're now one of the leaders in the CPU market. And AMD likes to give their products adventurous names like Ryzen, Athlon, and Threadripper. The ever-evolving Zen architecture is the backbone of the consumer and commercial PC segment, with the Ryzen series powering desktops and laptops. And where more power is needed, that's where we see AMD include GPUs. We'll get more familiar with these in the gaming segment, but the Radeon series has been added for customers who need more high-end personal computing. When a separate GPU is added to a powerful CPU, then you get a high-performance system like a workstation. These systems are more advanced on practically every level than a standard device: more storage, higher quality graphics, and powerful processing. A simple distinction could be that personal desktops and laptops are often associated with more casual computing, like watching movies and browsing the internet, whereas a workstation can be a more professional machine, used for everything from video editing and rendering to architectural designs for buildings and even cities. Hopefully this helps to highlight the scope of AMD's product lines, catering all the way from the casual laptop user to professional work needs. It's all types of consumer. And AMD's attention to chip quality is really what changed the game for them. They are now reaping the rewards for that focus. Let's get into the growth for AMD's PC segment. So AMD has seen a financial benefit throughout the global health crisis and the associated lockdowns. These events led to a sharp rise in demand for personal computers that could enable remote work and online education. So the company has seen strong, continuous growth in this segment, with revenues up 45% in 2021. And while global supply chain issues have impacted AMD's total chip shipments recently, the company has cleverly put a strategic focus on premium and higher-end products. In fact, the average selling price of each unit went above 80% during 2021. A company is in a strong position when they can raise prices and not lose customers. Another positive for AMD is that they're seeing impressive sales growth of their Ryzen 5000 series, their top-of-the-range processors prior to the release of the 6000. And they have plans for their next-generation processors, the Ryzen 7000 series, to launch in the second half of 2022. Now, we're going to apply an average annual growth rate of 25% to the PC segment. While we know this does seem low given their recent track record, and likely a very strong upcoming year in 2022, it's to account for future years when chip supply catches up to demand. So by 2025, this would see revenue for AMD's PC segment increase over its 2021 revenue by 2.5 times. We'll come back to this in our financial wrap-up. And remember, you can check out our regularly updated financial videos to keep informed about how the company is performing. Let's talk gaming. The biggest entertainment industry on the planet and growing fast. Well, AMD is taking its piece of that pie. And this is where AMD's GPU technology shines. Their Radeon series of chips are high-end GPUs, and their RX 6000 series are considered amongst the top graphics cards on the market today, with the RX 7000 series expected later in 2022. Given AMD's place in personal computers and laptops, you'd be right in thinking they have a strong presence in PC gaming. But they're still second place to Nvidia here. Nvidia really owns the PC gaming market. However, it's been rumored that upcoming AMD GPUs are more power efficient than Nvidia's. If that's true, AMD may be able to take more market share from Nvidia's next generation of GPUs. Now, this wouldn't be too surprising, considering AMD has a history of taking market share from bigger companies. Again, Intel, I'm sorry, but we're looking at you. So how does AMD stand out in the gaming industry? Well, as mentioned, the video game industry is huge, and PC gaming is only one of the elements that AMD is involved in. The company is also focused on powering some of the most popular consoles on the planet. Microsoft's Xbox One and the Sony PlayStation 4 are each powered by their own custom AMD processor, unique to their designs. And the newest generation of these consoles, the PS5 and Xbox X, also use Radeon series architecture called RDNA. It's interesting to note that AMD engineers work closely with these console designers to create specific solutions for them. So with their advanced technologies, AMD enables a gaming experience customized to that console. Now, the PlayStation and Xbox are obviously hugely popular the world over, but AMD is also expanding its presence into mobile gaming through a partnership with Samsung. An area that's often overlooked, but this is where the lion's share of the video game industry's money comes from nowadays. Small devices, big business. The RDNA architecture can even be found in automotive entertainment systems, in new Tesla vehicles for example. And AMD is also involved with Google's Stadia project, which is a cloud gaming platform. Consider it Netflix but for playing games. It's Google's work in progress, so we'll keep an eye on how that one develops. Either way, AMD is in there. Let's look into the growth of AMD's gaming segment. First, we should note that AMD reports their earnings in two segments, and so the figures for the PC growth and gaming that we've covered would actually intertwine and overlap somewhat. We'll address this again in our overall financial wrap-up. So, AMD has a reputation for being one of the most innovative companies in a highly competitive industry. But where they have a lead over all competition is in their chip design for game consoles. The latest generation of both Xbox and PlayStation consoles are packing extensive AMD CPU and graphics technology on a single chip. And considering the previous generation of these consoles sold over 160 million units combined, hopes are high for the new generation too. New console releases, like those of the PS5 and Xbox X, have a big impact on AMD's business, and usually have a life cycle of 6 to 8 years. So we expect revenue to remain strong, especially over the next year or two while they're still fresh products. Now, taking market share in PC gaming could also be very beneficial, as there are more than 1 billion PC gamers already. And mobile gaming has grown so fast over the past decade that it's become the most lucrative part of the entire industry. Let's put this into perspective. More than 1/3 of the world's population are gamers, and roughly 88% of them are playing mobile games in some form. The whole gaming industry is big business, and AMD is involved in most of it. So by 2025, we think their gaming revenues could easily double their 2021 levels. We'll come back to this in our overall financial wrap-up. And remember, we also have other videos exploring other game-changing companies, so you can check those out too. Let's talk about data centers. AMD's presence in this field is growing, mainly through their EPYC CPU series, but also their Instinct GPU series. Now, when we say data center, we mean a physical facility that a company would use to house their critical applications, and of course, data. Often a big space with thousands of big computers linked up. It's both storage and functionality. Data centers are also essential for cloud computing, which means having on-demand access to computer resources without having to buy them outright. So as long as you have an internet connection, then through your PC or laptop, you can basically rent whatever extra features you need when you need it. Storage, you got it. Powerful CPUs or GPUs, they're all yours. You can think of the cloud as the virtual part of a data center. And in the future, the main power of any application will likely be in the cloud through data centers. Cloud computing is one of the fastest growing segments in tech, and the biggest player by far is Amazon. Now, Amazon Web Services is used by countless businesses around the world, and AMD is an essential part of this service, providing the chips for Amazon's data centers. So, the world's biggest cloud company relies on AMD's products. Powerful data centers allow scientists and developers to tackle a range of engineering, scientific, and AI projects. Important global challenges are being addressed, with AMD's products helping to fuel the solutions. For example, the US Department of Energy has chosen an AMD-powered data center to help with projects on low-carbon technologies, solar power, and even astronomy. Serious projects count on the power and efficiency of data centers. Medical research like detecting cancers with advanced imaging, projects about the origins of the universe and the Big Bang, or bringing virtual reality and other immersive tech into classrooms, powered by AMD. Let's dive into data center growth. AMD more than doubled its data center revenue in 2021, and estimates are that this area currently generates roughly 1/4 of the company's overall revenue. AMD's acquisition of fellow chipmaker Xilinx is also with the view of expanding this segment. Xilinx is a leading manufacturer in data center specific technology, and this could be very beneficial to AMD's revenues in future. The hardware expertise of Xilinx will allow AMD to enter end markets where they previously had little to no presence, such as in aerospace, defense, wired and wireless network infrastructure. In January 2022, the last major hurdle for the Xilinx acquisition was overcome when China's State Administration for Market Regulation gave the go-ahead to the merger. Now, looking at the time period 2021 to 2025, we're going to apply an average growth rate of 40% for this segment. So by 2025, there's potential for data center revenue to 4x its 2021 total. We'll come back to this in our overall financial wrap-up. And remember, you can check out our regularly updated financial videos to keep up with how AMD is performing. Let's wrap up AMD. We can see that AMD's presence has grown so rapidly in the last few years that it can now be found in everything from PCs and laptops to new Tesla cars to advanced data centers. But it's a lot more than just being present. AMD's products are essential for entire industries. And these are the industries that will drive our future. Every vehicle will need a chip, every gaming system, personal computer, nearly anything electrical. But let's look at some of the challenges facing the company. The global chip shortage is affecting every chip maker. This stemmed from the health crisis of 2020, where stay-at-home orders led to a huge surge in demand for tech devices. Working from home, leisure, or just communicating had to be facilitated digitally. And as a result, there's not enough supply for each company, as the most important chip manufacturer, Taiwan Semiconductor, is at its production limit. So companies just have to wait until supply can meet demand. Also, we need to take account of competition. AMD has very impressively taken market share from Intel this decade, but Intel is a legacy giant of a company, and while they are down at the moment, they'll likely regain strength in a few years due to new management and heavy investment in themselves. They can afford it. And of course, when it comes to GPUs, Nvidia is still the leader here. But there's room in this field for AMD to do well, as we've seen by the fact that their technology powers the most sought-after gaming consoles in the world. And let's remember, the biggest businesses rely on AMD: Microsoft, Sony, Amazon, that list goes on. AMD even lights up New York's largest display system in Times Square. And they're on your flight too, through their use in airplanes' visual displays and mapping. In business, it's nice to be wanted, but it's better to be needed. And the fastest evolving industries need the technology that leading chip companies provide. AMD is undoubtedly one of the top companies in this field. We're going to look at the company's finances next, but it's important to realize that any future-looking statements are just estimates. This is not investment advice. The content of this video is for educational purposes only, and it's based on our own research, but of course, we could be wrong. When it comes to investing, it's very important to do your own research. Remember, an investment decision can be a big decision, and ultimately, it's your decision. Company stock prices can vary wildly, and it's common for the market or individual companies to have dips called corrections, or even severe drops, for example in times of recession. So when you look at the long-term stock performance of a well-established company, it can sometimes look like the stock just goes up. But when you zoom in closely to a shorter time frame, let's say a year, you'll see the line become jagged. It can even look like a mountain range in volatile years, but it certainly won't be straight up. So there will be dips, and in some years massive drops, possibly 40, 50% or even more. But for a fundamentally strong company, these dips are likely temporary. And when we zoom out to the long term, we can see they regain their position and continue incrementally up over time. If a business has a strong competitive advantage and is built to be anti-fragile, then this should be positively reflected in the stock price over the long term. And that is very important, the long term. Now let's take a deeper look at AMD's finances. Something important to note here though is that the segments we've covered today are not reported specifically in AMD's earnings results. They're contained within the segments that are reported: computing and graphics, and enterprise, embedded, and semi-custom. So we've had to make revenue estimates for each of our sections for 2021 and extrapolate out to 2025. Keeping in mind that revenue growth does not mean stock price growth, but it's important to look at how a business has been performing and how it could progress. Let's get into it, starting with the PC segment. In 2021, we estimate AMD generated $7.5 billion here. And while the growth rate has been very strong recently, we're gonna stay a bit safer and account for future years when there could be slower growth. So we'll apply an average rate of 25% from 2021 out to 2025, and this would get to $18.3 billion. That would be 2.5 times 2021's PC revenue. For the gaming segment, we're estimating $4.8 billion in 2021, and we'll apply a 15% growth rate here. This would see revenues reach $8.4 billion in 2025. That's almost a double for that period. For the data center segment, we reckon strong growth will continue, especially with the addition of Xilinx. With revenues of around $4.1 billion in 2021 and applying a growth rate of 40%, that gets to $15.7 billion in 2025, close to being a 4x. So, adding up the potential totals for 2025, we get to $42.4 billion. That's over 2.5 times AMD's total 2021 revenue. And on that point, this is potential revenue growth, it's not a stock price prediction. It's also good to note that the semiconductor industry has historically been a cyclical one, rising with demand and falling or evening out with oversupply. However, the world is more tech-reliant than it's ever been, and one thing we're confident of is that regardless of the companies involved, the world of 2025 is going to need more chips. So we'll leave you with the question, what could an investment in AMD now be worth in 2025? If you want to see more short documentaries like this, go to our YouTube channel or LinkedIn page. Make sure to subscribe or follow, and there, you'll be able to enjoy more of our videos.